Welcome back to Hoops HD,
Woo-hoo!
everybody. It is Monday, September, February 2nd. It's time for our weekly Hoops HD report. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Got David Griggs over there, John Salika, and John Titel joining us. Might have one other jumping on here as we go forward, but we've got a
I would
lot to
gladly
cover.
take some September weather instead of
Yeah,
our January freeze right now.
Ooh,
yeah,
if we
very
had
much
the
so.
inches of ice I have outside my house right now in September, there'd be problems, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Problems enough here in February, but we have a lot to get to going over all the games that happened, but I think we're going to start with a couple of things off of the court. First of all, let's start in a little, was it Division Two? I think it's a little Division Two basketball. Uh,
Yeah.
there was a game between Morehouse and Tuskegee. A big rivalry there, I believe.
Yeah, it really
And
is.
Benji Taylor, who spent some time as a Chicago State head coach and was very briefly the interim head coach out in Hawaii, if you remember that. Uh, he's now the head coach for Tuskegee. After the game, apparently there was a handshake line. And Griggs, I know you're not a big fan of handshake lines, but there was a handshake line going on.
I don't mind them.
And a bunch of Morehouse football players who'd been heckling Tuskegee throughout the game got into the line. And
Yeah.
Coach Taylor said, "We got a problem here." So he goes up to a police officer nearby and starts basically yelling at him or telling him, "We've got to do something. We've got to get these football players from Morehouse out of the handshake line with our Tuskegee basketball players."
Yeah.
So the officer grabbed him right there on video at the end of the game and put him in handcuffs and marched him away in a complete abomination by the officer. This is this was disgusting, I think, and
Yeah.
I don't know who this police officer is. I hope he's not a police officer for much longer, but that's just my personal opinion. But Griggs, you had a comment?
Well, yeah, to sum it up, but what happened was the game was at Morehouse. The football team, as they often do at a lot of these games, not just Morehouse games, but they were there in mass, and it's a rivalry game. They were into the game, not really doing anything wrong during the game. Just I mean, it was really intense, and they were heckling them. But what crossed the line is after the game, they came onto the floor, and we all know how Chad feels about court invasions and court stormings. And not only did they come onto the floor, they got into the handshake line on Tuskegee's half of the court, basically lined up as if they were on the mocking them, I guess, as they went through the line. The officer stood and watched it happen, or security did, and the coach went up. So first of all, why didn't you do anything when you saw them come onto the court? And when the coach said, "Hey, this is kind of dangerous. These kids coming around, hovering around up my guys, making fun of them, taunting them as they go through the handshake line," they opted to handcuff the coach and take him off. That's just outrageous. I don't know any other word for it. I think everybody can see it for what it is. I don't need to share my feelings on it because I feel the same way I think everybody does. That was
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah. He was never formally arrested, not charged with anything. He's already hired his own attorneys for some type of for a civil claim. See if anything happens out of that. Those things do take years, though. Uh, that's the news out of Division Two. Let's go into maybe onto the high school ranks also. Let's go into the radar there. Titel. Talk about the little McDonald's All Americans.
Yes, they announced the rosters today, which is always a big day for me as somebody who tries to interview the committed players before they get to school because they are the stars of tomorrow. And as we're seeing in college basketball this year, with guys like Boozer and Wilson and everybody else like Debanza, the stars of the present. So on the boys' side, a couple things of note. Archbishop Stepinac High School had not one, not two, but three players on the same team named McDonald's guys: Adonis and Darius Ratliff, who are heading to USC, and Josiah Jervis, who's heading to Michigan State. In addition to USC, there were two other schools who had more than one player. Duke and Missouri each had a pair. And there's also eight undecided players. Usually there's only a handful. Seems to me like there's a lot of undecideds, which is to say, if all of them go to Kentucky or North Carolina, then it's going to be a very different landscape next year. We'll see how that all shakes out. On the girls' side, three names caught my eye. You might recognize some of them. Kate Harpring, her father Matt was an All-American at Georgia Tech. Bree Crittenden, her father Jarvis was an All-ACC player at Georgia Tech about a decade after Matt. And Bella Flemings, her brother Kingston, is currently top 10 in the Big 12 in both assists and steals as a freshman at Houston.
Wow. All right. Keep an eye on the website though, for Tytel's going to interview every single one of them.
Yes, at
Absolutely.
length.
At,
Yeah.
at
And
length.
that's assuming former
Mhm.
players, well, former NBA players don't take their spots in the college ranks, but that's
Mhm.
another story.
Uh, let's get to
It's
the
another
co
story, but there is some overlap there. I mean, every time a player does that, it takes an opportunity away. So,
let's get to the court. And today is Groundhog Day for those that pay attention to those types of things. But I would argue that Saturday might have been Groundhog. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Saturday might have been Groundhog Day as well. We'll start in the SEC. And what I mean by Groundhog Day, I mean as in the movie, and as in technical foul after technical foul after technical foul. It looked like a loop. Kentucky Arkansas game. Uh, I got it, Titel. I got to throw it over to you. Did this game set the record for most technical fouls in a 30-second time period ever?
It was ridiculous. Like, I think they were all justified. One or two of them maybe were question mark, but like Pope was screaming at the ref, so I think that was legit. Another guy stepped over another guy, and after all the warnings, you should just get the heck away. And some of them, the guys just were doing a little something excessive. But yes, to answer your question, it's a ton of stuff. Alabama might have the number one strength of schedule in the nation, but Pope is not that far behind. The Wildcats have had six non-conference opponents who are probably going to make the NCAA tournament, and each of their 18 conference games are against Ken Palm top 100 teams. Last year, they set a school record for threes with 341. Record does look safe. They're only shooting 34% behind the arc this year. They've been bitten hard by the injury bug. Otega always the only guy on the roster who started all 22 games. You got Jaland Lowe, who's out for the year with right shoulder surgery. You got Jaden Quains, who's played exactly 67 minutes all season after transferring from ASU. Now Cam Williams is out with a broken foot. Somehow they've turned things around by putting Andrea Jelic in the starting lineup because, as we all know, Sledeći Čovjek Gore, or next man up in Croatian.
we got, are
we,
we,
we every week is a language lesson. Um,
oh, go ahead, Griggs.
Well, about Kentucky, I know that a lot of people are sort of writing them off. It's a down year, it's a rebuilding year, or whatever you want to call it. And while they did start off slow, and while they did lose some games kind of convincingly early on, I think now they're playing better than they have at any other point in the season. They've certainly improved as things have gone along. And I know that like Vanderbilt beat them.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we were just a week away from them, from Vanderbilt slaughtering them, you know.
Yeah, they are, and they did slaughter them. But I think they've won six of their last seven. And look at some of the games they won in that stretch, including a very, very impressive win at Arkansas and another one at Tennessee. The top of this profile is really good, and they've put it together in the last couple weeks.
I I can't disagree with that. Sleek, let's take a look at the rest of the SEC. And I think the other game note was Sunday's game. Florida demolished Team NBA Alabama.
Yeah, ever since Betty Yako returned, the Tide are only 1-2, and that was against a Missouri team that barely made our field last night. And by barely, I mean last team in, which is going to be on very shaky ground, so to speak. I know Chad had also talked about Groundhog Day in the SEC. I mean, Florida winning would be one thing. Georgia losing a pair of home games. Now they're starting to resemble the Dogs from last year, where they get a couple decent wins to get on the radar, but now they're looking very much like a team that's going from wearing white to wearing red in the first round and possibly getting closer to Dayton if their current slide continues, because
Yeah,
LSU and Florida are not gimmies by any stretch.
yeah. Thank you for bringing them up. Actually, that's a good point. This team on a three-game losing streak now, and Griggs, I think he's right. I think Georgia is moving closer to the bubble than they are anything else at the moment.
Yeah, last night during our selection show, I had them rated higher than everybody else, and after discussing it, I realized that I just simply had them too high. They're trending down. I do think they'll get the win at LSU. I don't think they get Florida, and then that game at Oklahoma. I mean, say that if they look, I mean, look at these next four games. if they could lose, it's conceivable that they lose three of them, and then they're in a situation where they've lost six of seven with Texas coming in.
I think the next six games they could lose all six of them, honestly, and that might
Yeah,
be it for the season,
it would
too.
be if they go 0-6 and then if they dump the next six, that's a 9 game losing streak. I don't think they recover from that, even if they win out.
If they lose against Oklahoma, they're in real trouble because the Sooners have all but mailed it in, it seems, at this point.
Yeah, just rough year for Potter Mojo and company.
Let's mention another team, couple teams here real quick. Let's start with Texas A&M, one of the teams that beat Georgia. Titel, here they are. They are 7-1. They are the first place team in the SEC. And congratulations, they finally slipped into one of the two polls today, the coaches poll at 25, which is almost mind-boggling that in February, first place team in the SEC is not ranked.
It is well deserved. I had kind of written them off after they lost Mackenzie McBako, aka McTaco, 7 games into the season for the year with an injury, as Chad shows you there with the foot. But kudos to Bucky Ball. The puppet is the biggest fan I know about it, and it's working. As you can see, points per game is 91.8, number two in the nation. There's no secret to how they're going to beat you. They're going to run up and down the floor. They got a balanced lineup, so there's no one guy you can shut down. Everybody makes threes, everybody contributes. This team is legit and like a very tough schedule ahead this week, but I would not put it past them because, as you said, number one in the conference.
It's a fascinating week with Alabama and Florida. And Stalika made this observation the other night. Their schedule is backloaded, so their hardest games are still ahead of them. But this is, I mean, they look really good, and they got off to a bit of a slow start in November, but they've looked pretty good ever since Thanksgiving. Really, I mean, they just blown through everybody.
Upcoming this week here in the SEC, Griggs, begins tomorrow night, Ole Miss at Tennessee, maybe, but the big ones here, I think, begin Wednesday, Texas A&M and Alabama, followed by
Yes.
Saturday, Florida at A&M, Tennessee at Kentucky on Saturday also, Alabama at Auburn. Uh, and I think the only thing that's missing from here is the big event in the SEC on Friday. Friday is the final hearing on Bediaku to determine whether or not he's going to be eligible for the rest of the season in front of a new judge after the first one recused himself. So that might be the most important day for the Tide and for the and
Yeah.
for the rest of the season here in
I think
the
they should
SEC.
postpone that until next Monday just so the Auburn fans can give Bediako some love.
This
If
is a
he,
pivotal. There's probably we're probably going to have to spend more time talking about this than what we'll have time for tonight. But if this is not overturned, it's going to change the trajectory, at least the immediate future of college athletics. Because if the NCAA loses its ability to declare players ineligible or to have eligibility at all, essentially, what happens next?
Then GMs in the NBA and the NCAA are going to have bigger headaches to deal with.
Yeah.
well, Mike Cha joining us first of all. Mike, great to have you on the show.
Yeah,
Uh,
buddy,
and
thank you.
And as you jump on here, since you are a Big Ten guy, we're just finished with the SEC. Let's jump over to the Big Ten because one of the stories of this past week was your Michigan Wolverines, who had as good a week as anybody in the nation, beating Nebraska on a road win at Michigan State.
Yes, they did. They pick up not one top five win, but two, and especially beating Michigan State for the first time in 8 years at Michigan State. So that's a huge plus for Michigan. But that being said, they still have their work cut out for them. They're gonna have to play at Illinois in the return game against Michigan State in Ann Arbor. Not to mention at Iowa, at Purdue. It's no easy feat in the Big Ten. So they're right now they're doing very well, but it's their work is far from over.
And they got a
Let me
game
throw.
against Duke
Yeah,
coming
they
up.
got a
Yeah.
Yeah,
little
that's right,
tiny
Duke in
non-conference
Washington,
game.
D.C.
Little
How can
tiny
I forget
non-conference
that?
game. Not that important, right?
Well,
Wow.
Yeah.
you know what, Mike? The reason I love this, and Nate Oates is the one that says this, but it's obvious that Dusty May subscribes to this. You're trying to win the whole thing, and if you're trying to win the whole thing, you need to make yourself as good as you can by playing the toughest games that you can, and playing Duke on a neutral floor, going at Purdue, going to Nebraska, who is within reach of a one seed. I mean, to be able to win games like that, they can win it all. And
Well, he knows the Big Ten is not going to prepare him for tournament play like the Blue Devils can
Yeah,
apparently.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say when you play a non-conference game, that prepares you for different styles. And I remember Joby was saying that the reason the Big Ten struggles is because the styles are very similar across the board, whereas in the ACC the styles are very different. So that is a huge benefit to playing an elite team in a different conference is a non-conference game. That is that you play a certain style and you prepare for that and it'll prepare you
Yeah.
well come March.
Yeah,
Uh,
and we've seen Michigan go deep. We saw Michigan make the final game. Was it 18 or 19 when they
2018,
when they played against Villanova, made it earlier against Louisville in 2013, but
2013.
yeah, this neither one of those teams seemed to be as good as this one at this point in the year. I don't want to take anything away from them, but they were sort of like protected seedish. They weren't one seedish like this team
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, plus that 2018 team, if Jordan Poole doesn't hit that three in the second round, or if Houston makes their free throws, then it would have the making the finals would have been moot.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
let's hit a couple other teams here. Stalika, the other team that had the great week in the conference, was your football national champion Indiana Hoosiers, beating Purdue and the thrilling double overtime win at UCLA that they tried to give away, but UCLA just didn't want it.
These are two wins that finally added something relevant to Indiana's profile. Other than that, their best win was at home against Washington, which was the only one in the top two tiers. Beating Purdue is something that the Hoosiers haven't done very much in the past decade, or at the very least, the past 5 to 6 years. I don't th Even Mick Cronin probably couldn't come up with an excuse for losing at home to Indiana in double overtime.
He didn't. He said we deserved to lose, although the officiating was terrible.
That's probably fair. Titel, Iowa also had a pretty nice week, not as notable of wins, but a nice 2-0 week, including a road win and a win over a pretty good USC team.
Better week than my video, Chad. Yes, new coach
Ooh.
Ben McCollum did go 10-1 in non-conference play. It was a rather soft schedule. He did have a rough start to conference play, 3 straight losses last month, but the Iowa City native bounced back 4 straight wins and a good chance to make it 7 in a row. He's got 3 winnable games ahead at Washington, hosting Northwestern, at Maryland. He's got a very balanced team, top 30 in the nation in both adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. A big reason they win close games, 78% at the free throw line, top 25 in the nation. And the star of the show, senior point guard Bennett Sturts. He followed McCollum over from Drake after being Conference Player of the Year in the MVC last year and has picked up right where he left off. 19 points a game, 39% behind the arc, 5 assists, 2 steals a game. They're almost mirror images of his stats from last year.
And they also have the defending player of the year from the Horizon League and Alvaro Folgueras, who was at Morris Robert last year.
And this Iowa team, they are looking a lot better. They were not good on the road at all. Now suddenly, like that win at Indiana, looking really good. And even though Oregon isn't that good, I mean, for them to win that decisively says a lot. They've got more winnable road games ahead. And I've always believed in this Iowa team. I've been talking them up the whole time.
Uh, exact opposite of the truth there, but we know you like to modify the truth of your needs. I think one other game quickly worth mentioning here, Mike, it was on Sunday. Illinois went to Nebraska, handed the Huskers back-to-back losses after they'd started the season undefeated. And how about this Illini team? Suddenly number 5 in the nation in the AP poll. And I know Rocco Miller mentioned it last night on our show, and I agree with him. I think this is a legitimate national championship contender team at this point. Not
Oh,
just Final
I
Four,
agree. I mean,
national
they're on
championship all the
fire.
way.
They're on fire. They won at Purdue, at Nebraska, and like I said,
Wow.
Michigan has to play them at Illinois, and they've lost their last 7 meetings against Illinois. This Illinois team is not only in position to sneak in for a 1 seed, but they're a very serious contender to win it all. That's I really like this team a lot. They're playing very well.
Think
In
about
some
it.
ways, they probably are reminiscent of the Flying Illini of '89, where
That's right.
Illinois swept both games in the regular season. But I'm sure Mike knows who won the rematch in the Final Four.
Uh, yeah, and with all these guys with the IC end of the names, I know Titel will give us a few more Croatian lessons on them too. But
The Balkan Five.
The Balkan Five. There we go. I'll tell you though, they win these two games this week, which means they pick up a road win at Michigan State to go with all these other amazing road wins. I know we've been kind of locked into who our 4-1 seeds are, but I think it becomes a very interesting debate between whether or not they belong on that one line also.
Oh,
Uh,
I agree with you. And the thing is, the one line is attainable when you factor in who else is left. Now, they don't have any more games against Michigan, but they
yes, they
might see
do.
them in the conference tournament.
Yes,
Oh,
they
they
do.
do. Excuse me.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Like
a
I
home game.
said, they do have another game against Michigan at the end of the month. Um, I agree with you. I do think that this is going to be a tough road. Yeah, I mean, the LA road trip is going to be hard for them, but they're certainly good enough to win both of them. And when you look at their losses, they occurred, two of the three were in November, and uh, they're certainly playing at a much higher level now. That win against Nebraska, that was a good Nebraska team who, while they lost at Michigan, was right in that game. I don't even really think of that as being a setback because Nebraska played so well in that game against a team that's
Missing
really
two
good.
players too.
Yeah, missing two players in a place that is hard to win. It's harder to win at Michigan than it probably is to win on an Elite Eight game as far as in a vacuum because you're playing a true road game against a Elite Eight caliber team, not a neutral floor game. And then Illinois went to Nebraska and won. I think that's one of the most impressive wins of the year period that any team has, that
Yeah,
win at Nebraska.
and they do it without killing Boswell there, who's out for about a month now. So
Yeah.
it's uh,
Is that the
yeah.
best win? Does anybody have well, Arizona at Connecticut's the best one. I think that's the best one, but this one's
Yeah, I agree.
second.
I don't know. I
Connor's
think
missing two starters. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Wisconsin at Michigan was a
I
pretty
was
good
going to say
win,
Wisconsin and
but
Michigan's like, duh.
uh,
That's why
anyhow,
Wisconsin's in the field.
yeah, let's take a look at the upcoming schedule here. And Rutgers at UCLA tomorrow night. See if Rutgers can again barely lose a game to a good team like they love to do all season. But in all
Yeah,
seriousness, the
real
Indiana
regional
US
conference matchup there, Rutgers.
Indiana USC is a good one coming up tomorrow night. We then get into the weekend with Illinois at Michigan State, which we just mentioned. We've also got this Wisconsin Indiana game. What else? We got Michigan and Ohio State. Mike, you don't care about that game. That's not even a rivalry, is it?
No,
I don't know.
not
They're
at all.
redoing all the Big Ten rivalries. I don't know if Michigan and Ohio State counts anymore because Rutgers, Illinois, and Wisconsin, Oregon are now the rivalries or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Whatever they were drinking, it was stronger than what I drink, and that is saying something.
I mean,
Let's look.
We know Dusty May and Tom Izzo were trading barbs in the media. I don't
Yeah,
think May and who is it, Jake Diebel are going to be doing the same thing next Sunday.
It's actually a big week for Ohio State. This is a team that's probably right around the bubble line, and they've got to win the game at Maryland
yeah.
and then see what they could do at home against Michigan over the weekend.
Mhm.
But over in the Big 12, where as we record this, Kansas and Texas Tech are uh, playing the game of the night and maybe may not be one of the better games of the entire week. However, well, you know what, Title, why don't we start there? Because Kansas is one of the hottest teams in the entire nation, especially with that win over BYU they had earlier this week.
Yes, they're currently trailing by 3 in the first half, but Bill Self started conference play 1-2. Ever since then, the only problem has been his health, frankly. He was hospitalized a couple weeks ago due to minor heart-related symptoms, but they're on a 5-game winning streak, including home wins over Iowa State and BYU. The reason this one is important, they're tied with Texas Tech for fourth place in the conference. I'll come back to that shortly. The key has been defense. They're top 15 in the nation in opponent field goal percentage from each of 1-point land and 2-point land and 3-point land. The star of the show is projected #1 overall pick Darren Peterson. Self has called him the most talented incoming freshman he's ever had, and he's living up to that high praise. 21 points a game, shooting better than 43% behind the arc. He even had 3 steals in just 20 minutes against the Cougars. The only concern, he has missed 10 games, including the losses to Duke and UConn earlier. He has not played more than 32 minutes in a single game, so I don't know what to expect from him in the conference tournament, which is why there might be no team in the country who wants to be a 4 seed in their conference tourney as bad as the Jayhawks, because that would give them a bye all the way to the quarterfinals.
I think if this were the NBA, they would call that load management as it relates to Peterson.
I'll tell you what, though, if I'm the Jayhawks, I don't know that I play him. I'll play him that first game of the conference tournament. They do win it. They get to the semis. I may not play him. I may say let's save him for the NCAA tournament, which is a lot more important than the Big 12 tournament because we've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Big 12 tournament moves the needle much for anybody. I really
Well,
don't.
it's generally, yeah, I mean, it's generally teams, once you get down to the quarters and semis, that are in the top half of the bracket or protected seeds. And they've kind of made their case already. Like you've either beaten those teams, basically the bulk of their profile is pretty much set at that point.
Uh,
Kind of reminds me of Cooper Flag last year, where it's like, yeah, maybe he could have played during the ACC tournament, but he had nothing to gain, no reason to
Right.
play him, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Stalika, let's talk about the other team that had a big week in this conference. That's UCF. They pick up the win over Arizona State and follow it up with a nice. It was at home, but they beat Texas Tech.
Well, this was one of the reasons why I tried to seed UCF a little bit higher than what our own committee would have done because now the Knights have two wins against protected seeds when you throw in the Texas Tech game as well as the Kansas win they had earlier in January. Oh, and by the way, they're the only team that's won at Texas A&M so far outside of the Aggies. I mean, that yes, the win against Colorado on the road is technically tier one, but that's probably going to fall down to tier two as we get later into February here. But if you look at the upcoming week,
Oof.
winning at
Oof.
Houston's going to be a major reach, but Cincinnati, that's not a trap game you want to fall into because back-to-back losses, and then you'll end up like Georgia, where you're probably wearing dark and potentially getting close to the bubble if they were to also stumble at home against West Virginia and TCU, who are fighting for their own lives at this point.
Yeah, when you look at that schedule, can we go back to it for just a second, Chad? I think the next game it's over their heads. I mean, what a win it would be if they got it, but I mean on the road at Houston. But after that, I think Cincinnati, West Virginia, TCU, and even going to Utah, I think they can win all four of those, and they should win all four of those. Like
Yeah.
I
Let's just talk about real briefly here, Mike. I want to bring up BYU because this is a team that did not have a good week. I now granted they played Arizona and Kansas, but they
Yeah,
did
that's
go
not
0
easy.
2.
on the road.
Look, Arizona was at home.
Oh, Arizona wasn't home. All right.
Arizona was at home. They came back from nearly came back all the way from what 11 down with the minute and a half to go. Although
Yeah.
Arizona kind of helped them there, but yeah, no shame to losing to Arizona at home, and then at Kansas, very difficult to win at Allen Fieldhouse. But that being said, now they've got no excuses this time. They got a game against at Oklahoma State that they should win that, and they got a tough game at Houston. I know it's tough, but at least it's on their home court, and let's see if they can beat Houston. But then yeah, at Arizona, that's going to be tough, but at least
Yeah.
hold serve on the games that they should win.
I'll tell
That
you
is
that.
Well,
a brutal week when they get Arizona and Iowa
Yeah,
State.
Yeah,
but
Iowa State, yeah, right. I
let
overlooked
me
that.
throw this
Yeah,
in there for Graves because this is going to be something that I have a feeling we're going to be discussing come selection Sunday, come selection week.
yeah.
Assuming they do not win at Arizona, BYU will not have a true road win against an NCAA tournament team this season, even if they win the rest of their road games.
You are right, and I kind of want to. Tytel, are you still with us? Like you look at this
Yes.
profile where it currently stands, it doesn't top out as high as anyone else that we're looking at for a protected seed. All this time, we've kind of just been assuming BYU was one. Their profile has some things on it to suggest that maybe they're not, particularly where they top out, and then what Chad just said it is rare. I mean, I'm sure there's examples of it, but it is rare that a team is given a protected seat if they haven't won a road game against the team that's inside the bubble.
Yes, but I think the X factor is that if they lose their three remaining games to single digit net teams, and then even the last game at home to Texas Tech, who's 19, that's eight, not good, but amazing losses to
Yeah.
eight of the 20 best teams in the country.
And
Yeah,
they
it's
will get some credit for the neutral court games against Clemson and Villanova. I
Yeah,
know
they'll get.
Miami's top 40, but they're very iffy right now.
I agree with you, John. And just so everybody, I think this is a really good BYU team. I don't know if you follow the write-ups, but I actually was expecting them to beat Kansas. I mean, they didn't do it, but they're capable of winning a game like that. They just haven't done it yet. And if they don't do it at all, is the committee going to be like, well, wait a minute?
Now, back because a very interesting case study. Should they be able to pick up the Houston or the Iowa State home win? But again, lose that hour. It's really the Arizona game that on the road there you got to circle. Sorry, Tytel, but BYU fans are going to really want that game.
Yes, they will.
Uh, let's take a quick look at the. I think that's it for the most of the notable games that were played this week.
And I should also add that when they were in the West Coast Conference, BYU usually had a knack for winning at the kennel where other teams in the conference, mainly St. Mary's, weren't able to pull it off regularly.
Yeah.
The only game, a quick note here is TCU shooting themselves in the foot and probably falling.
Probably
Not,
more than probably the leg and in the gut and
bad
maybe
loss
even the
at
face.
Colorado by 26 points for a team that we thought was on the bubble and might no longer be.
Are you sure they're just shooting themselves in just the foot? They may have just shot themselves in the head.
Between the legs.
As we mentioned, that Kansas and Texas Tech playing right now. By the way, Christian Anderson out for Texas Tech, but yet they are up three late in the first half as we record this. Other upcoming games of note here, I guess we've got to circle Saturday, Houston at BYU,
Yeah.
Texas Tech with a road game against a West Virginia team that is not too far off of bubble consideration, quite honestly. And
I don't think they are. They didn't play well at the start of the year, but what if they won 6 of their last 8 or something like that? I mean, they're kind of climbing the standings a little bit here.
But losing at home to Baylor, that
Yes.
was a
Yeah.
big setback for the Mountaineers.
I'm not putting them in my field sick of any
No,
mean
I'm not.
but
Not yet
I'm not
either.
writing. I'm not crossing them off the list either. Uh,
Yeah.
Huge game
Oh, and
next
they
Monday
also
night.
have an ugly loss against some team named Xavier back in
Yeah.
November.
Yeah, huge game next Monday night. Arizona at Kansas. Anyhow, let's jump over to the ACC, where just tonight North Carolina almost blew the game against Syracuse late, but
They were up
it looked like they were in
26
control.
and barely won.
Uh,
Yeah, they won by 10.
Yeah.
but why don't we start? Well, I guess I'm not sure where to start. Maybe well, Tytel, why don't we start with Louisville?
Coach Pat Kelsey, last year, a coaching masterclass. He inherited a roster that only won 8 games the previous year. He had several guys injured during the year. He still won 27 games in year number 1 in Louisville. This year, 15-6 after a double-digit home win over SMU last Saturday. Has the home cupcake on Wednesday against Notre Dame, and then the road trip to Wake Forest on Saturday. Key has been inside the arc on both ends of the court. The Cardinals are top 12 in the nation in both 2-point percentage and 2-point percentage allowed. And he's benefited from not one but 2 of our normal panelists. He brought in Ryan Conwell from Xavier, which ruined Stalika's year, and he brought in Isaac McNeely from Virginia to ruin Joby's year. All they've done is combine for 31 points, 8 boards a game, each shooting better than 83% at the free throw line. But the key to whether they're going to make a deep run next month is the health of projected lottery pick Michael Brown Jr. When he's healthy, the team's 11-2 and has beaten Indiana and Kentucky. When he's hurt, the team is 4-4 and they lost to Stanford.
And he
I'm
is back
failing
right
to see
now,
how
correct?
Virginia's year got ruined,
Yes.
though.
Yeah, Virginia's having a good year.
Virginia's having a good year. Who else have a pretty good year, Mike, is the Duke Blue Devils. They are number 4 in the nation, but now up to number 1 overall in the net ratings. And, they beat Louisville and they won the game they went at Tech this weekend too. This team is rolling, aren't they?
Yeah, certain teams rebuild, certain teams reload. Duke is one of those teams. They lost. They had 2 top 10 picks. They lost 2 top 10 picks. I mean, namely Cooper Flag and Khan. Forgot his last name. He's with the Hornets right now, but yet they find a way to just
Apple.
reload and sorry, thank you. They just find a way to reload. I mean, they do have a win at Michigan State. You look at they have 9 tier 1 wins, 5 of them 1A. I mean, they're playing like a true number 1 seed.
I'll tell you one of the things I look at when I just look at the stats here. Tytel, maybe this is almost one of your questions. You look at the games played for the top eight, nine players here, all 21 games. Team's been mostly injury free all season.
Yes, I think it's a factor of a couple of things. One, it's a nine-man roster, so it's not like if it was seven-man roster, I think it's hard to, number one, keep everybody happy, and number two, like hope that everybody can stay healthy. Secondly, Boozer, when you have a go-to guy, I think it takes all the pressure off everybody else on the team because they know if something goes wrong, if you're down at halftime, or if the shot clock's running down, you have option one who can save the day. And frankly, like when you're fourth in the nation in offense and defense, like you could have a two-man roster or a 12-man roster. Like their team is just freaking good.
This is an amazingly good team. I cannot
Well,
argue with that.
they do have there are some dangerous signs coming up ahead here.
Okay.
Well, because if they lose, if you pull up their schedule here,
BC
they
at
are in
home.
danger of being disqualified from the postseason if they lose tomorrow to Boston College.
Oh, okay.
Oh boy.
One other team, Griggs, in all seriousness from this past week. Interesting week for the Cal Bears, who
Yeah.
we snuck into our field, lose at Florida State, but then bounce back with the road win at Miami.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a team that struggled on the road. Now, granted, travel is hard for them. And that was just such a pivotal game because it was one that they both needed. It was sort of a bubblicious game. And after Cal lost to Florida State, they didn't have they losing to Florida State. They only had one true road win on the year, and they were showing all the signs of uh trending down and being in a tailspin and just not checking the boxes that they needed to get a bid. But then they got a really, really high quality win at Miami. That's their profile. I know they have the home win over North Carolina, but North Carolina, not the best road team. That win over UCLA at the time that it happened felt like it was better than what it's turned out to be. So I think that win at Miami, not only was it big, it is their profile.
I
But
think
I
the
think
interesting.
Cal is the, I was going to say, Cal's probably the kind of team that can beat Clemson at home, lose against Georgia Tech, and when they go on the road, they'll get the win at Syracuse, potentially disqualify themselves with a loss at Boston College, and who
Yeah,
knows what they'll do the rest of the way.
It's interesting though. You look at the remaining schedule; it is all winnable. I mean, the road games are not against tournament teams, and the home games against tournament teams are Clemson and SMU. It's not Duke or Carolina or Louisville or Virginia. They're done with those teams.
they're
So,
winnable and they need to win them.
not. I
Because
mean, yeah,
they're not playing, with the
Right.
exception of Clemson, they're not playing anybody that's solidly in the
Right.
field. Well,
SMU,
SMU, sorry.
yeah. Well, nine games left. Titel, how many of those nine do they need?
8.
Most. The thing is, Chad, you're correct to focus on the schedule. I would turn my focus to the tier two losses, 3 points to Kansas State, 2 points to Florida State. And even if you go up on 3 points to Virginia Tech, it's a game of like inches and whatever in football, but like they're literally like 10 points away from there it is. Couldn't have
Yeah.
said it better myself.
I'd say
Uh,
minimum seven. Probably eight of those nine they got to win.
Yeah.
but I
I,
will say if they make the NCAA tournament field, nobody celebrates as good as the Mad Dog, Mark Madsen. Just watch any of the Lakers championship parades
Oh
back in the
yeah,
day.
jeez. Oh gosh.
let's
I'll
take
have to check those out.
take a look at the upcoming schedule here. We mentioned that potentially disqualifying game for Duke for any postseason chances, but we've got some interesting games though for real, including NC State at SMU, game that NC State could really use here coming up on Tuesday. Clemson with a road test. Clemson has the game at Cal, huge
Yeah.
one,
And
and
Stan. Yeah.
I guess there's this game Saturday that's kind of important. Griggs, Duke at
Yeah.
North Carolina.
This is going to be a big road test for Duke against a rival that is really playing well now. They haven't they haven't been going 100 miles an hour all season, but the Tar Heels are going 100 miles an hour now, and this rivalry has something in common with Wazoo and Idaho. I looked this up. The two teams, they're actually slightly further apart, but they're still close to just 8 miles apart, and they've never met in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight.
Okay, this is not as good anymore since we have
Yeah,
to invalidate that Duke Carolina NCAA tournament game. Uh,
yeah,
it is though also like it's an interesting week for NC State, team right there
yes.
near the bubble. Probably on the good side of it for now, but at SMU, hosting Vodtech at Louisville.
I got to admit, I was surprised we had NC State as solid as we did. Now, winning at SMU and even the home win against Virginia Tech, that will help a bit. Also, Louisville is another possible game changer for the Wolfpack right there because they've missed on a bunch of opportunities and they were on the wrong side of the cut line for a couple weeks until they got right with the win at Clemson.
Let's jump over to the Big East Conference here. Uh, Mike, let me start with you. Why don't we start at the top here? UConn, now 11-0 in conference, did what they needed to do this week. Got a little bit of a test from Providence, but they took care of business.
Oh, yes, they did, and they should be. They are easily the class of the Big East Conference, and they looking at their schedule, St. John's will be tough, especially at their place, and maybe at Villanova. But I would not be surprised if they ended up running the table. They're going to be favored in each of the remaining games.
They will be. Look at the top of this profile if you go back
That's
because
right.
it's interesting, and we'll have to get Tytel's thoughts. On paper, that's incredible. Florida, Illinois away from home at Kansas and BYU. I mean, those are four protected seeds, all wins, three of the four wins on neutral floors, and another one a true road game. But it's also true that none of those four teams, while they were good when UConn beat them, they're all four of them. I think it's safe to say are playing better now than they were in November and early December.
Right.
Does the committee factor that in at all?
I'm leaning no. Why would you penalize a team for scheduling a team but not scheduling them in the right month of the year? That seems crazy, no?
Yeah,
I'm not saying
it's
it
not their
doesn't.
fault.
Yeah,
It's not their fault.
I don't know. Yeah, UConn, with what they have left, if they can win the game this weekend at St. John's, may not lose again.
I don't think they
And
will lose
and
again.
they can't. I mean, and they'll be on the one line. You just can't keep them off the one line if that happens. I
Yeah,
don't care how hot Illinois is. Uh,
Illinois is pretty hot.
uh, but I guess when we look at what happened this past week, Stalika Seton Hall was kind of the other story. Uh, I know you don't want to remember what happened in that game against Xavier, but they again found ways to look awful in the first half and win games. Been the
Well,
story
I
of the season.
alluded to that when I said Xavier made the tactical mistake of jumping up again by double digits against the Pirates because that's where they've been the most comfortable, just basically challenging themselves, Holloway making whatever adjustments they need to at halftime, and they were able to get some much needed wins against Xavier and Marquette, but it's going to take road wins against teams like Villanova and Creighton to really move the needle, especially with the Blue Jays now going into free fall again.
Yeah, that's a huge game coming up here against that game at Villanova. Would note that Villanova got the win over Providence. St. John's got a win here. Uh, Most exciting game was Xavier's win over DePaul, but not that it has any tournament implications. But uh,
I mean, we knew with Xavier's hard luck they were going to, even overcoming an 18-point deficit, did they really have to use their buzzer beater against DePaul? You couldn't save it for a team like Villanova or Butler down the line.
the big games here: Seton Hall, Villanova Wednesday night, UConn
Oh
at
man.
St. John's Friday night, national TV game there. Also keep an eye on Seton Hall at Creighton on Saturday. Uh,
And another
And
garden party next Monday.
Xavier
yeah,
at St. John's. Throw in there St.
and
John's at DePaul Tuesday. Oh no, maybe not.
yeah.
Uh,
I wanted to like Butler. I really did.
let's stick in the East here. Let's go over to the Atlantic 10. Uh, Tytel, I got to ask you about the St. Louis team. They just keep winning, and they demolished arch rival Dayton on Friday night.
Yes, they are clearly the class of the A10. I think that they will be able to handle George Mason in the season finale, even though it's on the road in Fairfax, Virginia. Um, they just are exceeding everyone's expectations. Their keys are offense and defense. They are top four in the nation in making threes and defending threes. They're top six in the nation in making twos and defending twos. Coach Josh Schertz has to be a strong contender for National Coach of the Year. You got the star and Robbie Avila, aka Larry Blurred or Steph Blurry, depending upon your preferred nickname. They really should, like, I think they're going to win out. Like they're that good.
They,
Oh, and speaking of hardware, former Musketeer Trey Green, he won the Harewood Horse Trophy with 22 points as the MVP in the Arch Baron Cup.
I agree
So
with Titel. I think they'll win out through the regular season. My question is, I think,
Watch out. I know it's a home game. Watch out for VCU on
yeah,
the 20th.
VCU is playing really
Hmm.
well. There are some teams in this league that are looking pretty good. George Mason being one. Um, who's the other one?
George
Oh,
Mason and VCU.
yeah,
Really,
George Mason
I
and
really
VCU.
think it's George Mason and VCU. If we can
Oh.
forget about the rest of the conference, but
Okay. You probably can. And I wanted to like Dayton. I got to get used to the fact that they're just never going to live up to their to expectations. But here's the thing, like Titel, you've been putting them on your seven line. What is their ceiling? Because I don't think they could get up to a protected seed, even if they do win out through the conference tournament. I just don't think the profile is there, or can they?
Could be. So JNG, as you see, is 22, which puts them as like a high
So,
six seed,
yeah.
which is why I'm as a seven, just because the strength of schedule is atrocious. If they win out, what do they got here? One, two, three, four, nine regular season games, 30-1 entering the conference tourney. I mean, if they win the conference tourney, I think a four seed is in the mix just because they will have stacked so many wins. Not great wins, but wins nevertheless.
33-1. I mean, that is a hell of a record.
Yeah.
It was too long ago to be relevant now. What was Princeton the year they were 30-1? Because they weren't a protected seed.
1998.
Yeah, what seed did they get? Do you remember?
They got a five, I believe,
Okay,
where they won
yeah.
their first round game and then lost in the second round.
Yeah, and I mean that was too long ago to be relevant for this current committee. I don't know if there's any case studies of bloated records against weak schedules. I remember George Washington only got an 8 one of the years when they had a big record out of the A10. But again, that was
Let's not even discuss GW this week because after that heartbreaking loss at SLU, they had a bedwetting at home against Fordham, so their
yeah.
sheets were extremely gold.
The games this week, tomorrow night, St. Louis is at Davidson. Saturday, they're hosting
Very
LaSalle.
graphic.
Yeah.
Uh, Look at Friday here. Dayton at VCU. Like I mentioned, this VCU team, they've got to go to Fordham tomorrow night also. This is a team that I'm keeping an eye on here. Not in my field yet, but I don't think they're that far off, especially if they could
No.
just build up the volume of wins because they don't have the bad loss. And
Yeah, and
that's
you
kind of that.
observed they're pretty close to a team like St. Mary's profile wise.
Uh, let's jump over to the Mountain West, and well, we now have a three-way tie between probably the only three teams really worth seriously discussing in this conference: Utah State, New
There's a
Mexico,
fourth.
San.
There is a fourth.
No,
But
we're
go
not
ahead.
discussing Tim Miles. Not happening. Uh,
Well, there's a fifth then because I forgot all about Tim. I think Grand Canyon is just on an absolute rampage and could really finish strong. I don't know if they can get all the way to the bubble, but my God, they can break a lot of stuff.
yeah, Tytel, I think this could be a dangerous team in the Mountain West tournament, as could UNLV hosting it. But can you get in with the Colorado State and Youngstown State home losses?
Short answer is no, but Chad is correct to point that out because if you look at Bryce Drew's history in his previous conference, which I believe was the WAC, he has made the tournament in 4 of the past 5 years, and he didn't do that, I assure you, by being an at-large team. He did it by winning games in a conference tourney setting in March. So if there's any coach in the conference who knows how to win games in the conference tourney, it's the newcomer in Grand Canyon's Bryce Drew.
I
Yeah,
agree
they
there.
still got to go to Utah State. They still got to go to San Diego State. I mean, but I mean, they are just they're not the same team they were pre-Christmas.
Throw aside the loss they just had at Nevada this past week, but Griggs
Yeah,
ignores that because it was a road game. Mike,
yeah, it
how
was
about
a road.
Utah State though? They picked up a real nice win over San Diego State this weekend, uh, albeit at home.
Yes, but even though at home, I mean, it's still if you're gonna win the conference, you got to beat the big boys. San Diego State is one of the big boys, and that's a huge win for Utah State. So that that's looking up. That the key challenge is going to be in a couple days when they have to go to New Mexico, see if they can win that. But if they can beat New Mexico, I mean, I see the next four games very winnable. They could be in really good shape.
Yeah, the other team
I
with
think
it.
they're
I was going to say, Griggs, let me ask you, the other team that had the nice week was that New Mexico team. Pair of
Yeah,
road wins this week,
yeah,
to double their total road wins of the season pretty much,
right.
uh, but
And that
right
win
there
against
now.
yeah, the win against VCU is suddenly aging well, as is Utah State's win against VCU. And you look at some of the losses. The one that kind of anchors them down is that loss at New Mexico State. The other ones are kind of excusable. Um, I think that this team should be inside the bubble, albeit barely. I know we selected them, but we selected them as one of the last few teams. I think they're a little bit safer than that. Having said that, they need to win their next three.
Well, the next one is the big one, and that
It's
is,
very big.
yeah, Slika, that's the game of the week here in the conference Wednesday night, Utah State at New Mexico.
Yeah, because I know Joby's also made this observation. The only team that's really beaten teams against the NCAA field right now are the Aggies of Utah State. New Mexico badly needs to get into that group with a home win against Utah State on Wednesday.
Over in the West Coast Conference, one more full conference to go through here. Uh, Here it comes right now, and uh, Titel, I think it may could potentially be the last time we ever see a St. Mary's at Gonzaga game, but Gonzaga did what they do, and they beat the Gales on over the weekend.
Without Braden Huff, which is the most impressive thing to me, he's still out with an injury. I think he's going to come back sometime in the weeks ahead. But Graham Ike also coming back from injury in a big way. 30 points, only one turnover, controlled the game for the Zags. They only have one loss this season. Santa Clara is a very good team and had the lead in the second half before the Bulldogs pulled away. Really think that the Zags should run the table. I know Santa Clara is legit. I know the rivalry with St. Mary's is huge, especially if it's the last one ever, which I don't think it will be. So they'll have to earn it. I don't know if they can do it without Huff, but they are this good. They were one of my four picks to make the Final Four, and I'm sticking with it just because I believe in them.
Well, it depends on Huff's injury. It says 4 to 8 weeks. They could be back right around that St. Mary's game. They may end up holding him out to the NCAA tournament anyhow, which is what I would advise them to do. But um, Slika, how about that Santa Clara team, though? It's a team we only briefly mentioned last night in our bracket rundown show, and they got some good here with the St. Mary's win. What they did to your Xavier team, they got one really bad thing on the profile, though.
Yeah, that one bad thing on the profile is a reason why Santa Clara is about 10 spots behind the Gales in both the resume-based metrics as well as the predictive-based metrics here. The BPI, the TR, etc. Those are all very bubblish, and even the resume, that's really on the cut line right there when you look at Joby's ranking of 50, for example, the average of 48. Although the predictives are a little better than I thought they might be, given that they're 43 and kind of on the right side of the cut line. But again, no margin of error for the Broncos here. And if they win either Gonzaga or at St. Mary's, I think they're going to have a leg up on the Gales if that's the case.
Well, let me ask Tytel this question here. Let's assume we play out Santa Clara season. They lose the Gonzaga game, they lose at St. Mary's, and they lose to one of those teams in the West Coast Conference semifinal. Otherwise, they win the rest of the games. In, out?
So would they have a win over the Zags or another one over St. Mary's or
No,
not?
they will not beat Gonzaga or St. Mary's again, but those were the only two teams they lose to the rest of the year.
J&G says 50, so I say out because you don't have anything that's going to move up to J&G, right?
All right, so you got to pick up either the Gonzaga win, the win at St. Mary's, or beat at least one of them in the WCC tournament.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would be St.
Especially,
Mary's the way it would be bracketed.
Yeah,
So
assuming they're the 3 seed and St. Mary's is the 2, yeah.
especially with tier one being
Or they're
blank
the
and a
2.
big spot in tier four, that's a loss that cannot be swept under the rug.
yeah, and oh my God, they've just got that one crippling loss.
Uh, Upcoming games this week, Gonzaga, they are at Portland and at Oregon State. St. Mary's hosting San Diego and San Francisco, where Santa Clara is at Pacific at Washington State. We got a call for this game Sunday, New England and Seattle.
I think the West Coast Conference expansion is completely out of control if we're going to the
Yeah.
East Coast now.
Uh, what do you think, Titel?
Not
New
fair to
England,
Seattle.
Seattle.
They play at Portland the night before. No rest,
Yeah,
back to back.
that's rough. How about that, Titel? What New England, Seattle? You got a pick?
You think the guy born in Boston is going to pick against his boys? Of course, I'm going with the Pats, and of course, Mike Shaw, who loves Tom Brady, has got to be going with me as well, right?
Uh, That's
Or
I don't care
not?
either way. I got a lot of relatives in Seattle, so I got a reason to root for the Seahawks,
Ah,
but
I got a
I don't
fun
care either
fact
way.
for you that's really out there. The last three times the papacy changed, like Pope John Paul
Oh,
II
that's
to
right.
Benedict and to Francis and then to Leo the 14th, the Seattle Seahawks have made the Super Bowl each year. Now, as to
That
whether or not they win that, that's not very
uh,
clear
well,
because they're
well,
1-1 in
I'll
that
tell you
time
what could be the
frame.
deciding factor in my opinion, Griggs, is whether or not this is at the game.
yes.
It's a Seattle icon, people. Come
Yeah.
on.
Oh wow. That thing's older than America itself.
One of the teams to take a quick look at here. Pull up the Mid-American Conference, but just look at one team. It's Miami, Ohio, number 23 in the AP poll this week, 24 in the coaches poll. Held on tough against UMass. Pulled away in the second half against Northern Illinois, but 22 and 0, one of
Yeah,
two undefeated teams.
yeah, still unbeaten. Sort of a rough stretch coming up here. Buffalo has tailed off some, but remember they needed overtime to beat Buffalo. Two overtimes, I think, to beat them
One
early in the
overtime.
year. Or it was just one. Okay, sorry. And they got to go on the road for that now. And that road game at Marshall, that might be one of their toughest games of the year. Um, so interesting. Another te two real tests for them this week, actually.
Let's not forget in their first game against Buffalo, they needed a 3-point shot just to one force overtime, and
Right.
then a second 3-point shot to win the game in
Yep.
overtime against the
Yeah.
Bulls.
It was one of many exciting games that they've played.
I think they do get this win at Buffalo. I think it's the week game this weekend at Marshall that could trip them up. Not the best
Yeah.
team in the Sun Belt as the way the matchups worked when they released them. Akron's going to be taking on Troy, and that's Mac's Sun Belt
That's a
challenge.
good game too. That's a real good game.
But Marshall was a little bit ahead of Troy on the day they announced these matchups. That's why Miami got
Mhm.
Marshall. Uh, that does conclude all the teams we got to speak about. So let's go to final thoughts. And Tytel, I'm going to start with you.
so we talked earlier about how difficult it'll be for some of those Big 12 teams to win at Houston, and this is why. The Fertitta Center, we all know that the puppet likes road wins more than anything, except perhaps the coaching resume of Tim Miles. But for those of you who like home wins, I present to you the campus of the University of Houston. Cougars are 12 and 0 at home this year. They were 16 and 1 last year with just a 1 point overtime loss to Texas Tech. The year before that, they went undefeated 17 and 0, and they won their last 5 home games in 2023. So to recap, last 51 home games, they're 50 and 1 with a 1 point overtime loss to a Red Raider squad that made the Elite Eight that year. So imagine the scene on February 21st. NFL season's over, NBA All Star weekend's over, Arizona comes to H Town, potentially a 26-game winning streak on the line. There's a reason tickets to that regular season game are already as low as $460.
Wow. Wow.
And that's the low point.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess I know. Let's go ahead and pull this down here. Go, Mike, you're up.
Um, just final thoughts.
Yeah.
Just the thing is like tonight's Stephen F. and the McNeese State matchup shows that it's important to not to overlook the matchups, the key matchups from the smaller conferences. So when you have like a VCU and St. Louis play each other, that's important to keep an eye on. Just let you appreciate that there can be good basketball played not just in the Big Four in the Power Four conference, but in the smaller conference too as well. So I'm really excited as football is going to fade into the limelight. Basketball is going to take center stage by itself. So really excited.
Yeah, just a quick note here. It's very under the radar. We'll talk about it Wednesday night, what happened in the Southland tonight. But do want to give congrats to Stephen F. Austin for now having a 2-game lead over McNeese in the Southland standings, which will earn them the right to go to McNeese for the conference
Yeah.
tournament.
Yeah.
Stalika.
I know Mike kind of alluded to it when we were talking about the Charlotte Hornets earlier. There was a bit of a Duke reunion with Knuppel and Cooper Flagg just having a game for the ages. But if you want to talk about another guy about the Hornets that's literally played for the Birds and the Bees last year, I give you former Creighton standout Ryan Kalkbrenner, who I'm sure Creighton probably misses dearly right about now, given their slide of late.
Yeah. Greg, do you want to finish off the show?
Yes. And again, my final thought is I just want to say that I love our fans. I love our viewers. I do what I do to make the fans and viewers happy, and I always want to try and offer them something special, which is why I wanted to roll this out. A brand new thing. Here it is. I think you can see it on the screen now. These are the new David Griggs trading cards. Look at that. Isn't that just a beautiful card? Uh, these are limited edition cards. We will limit the production to the number of cards that we can sell. So, I mean, we're not going to make a whole lot of them. They're limited to only 5 per customer, unless you want to buy more, then you can. And it's important to point out, like, how extremely valuable trading cards could be. This card right here by Honus Wagner, it's valued at 7.5 million. And look at my card. My card's bigger. It looks a lot better. So, but I'm almost embarrassed to say what the price of it is. You can purchase this trading card for a fraction of what the Honus Wagner card is worth, just $7,500. And there's a special offer here for senior citizens. It's as low as $7,000.
Once again, whatever you do, please do not buy anything that David Griggs is selling on our website or any website. Please do not do it. But I do want to thank everyone for joining us. On behalf of John Sleekle, Mike Cha, John Teitel, David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back Wednesday night with Under the Radar, Sunday afternoon with a bracket rundown, and next Monday night with another Hoops HD report. Talk to you again real soon.